Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. That's more like it. It's a youth-focused event, so let's bring some youthful energy into the room. My name is Levi Singh. I have the honor of being your moderator and master of ceremonies for today's proceedings. Thank you all so much for joining us. At the onset of today, I would like to welcome everyone warmly to this event. And I would like to start by recognizing some of the eminent personalities that we have in the room. So first and foremost, so I'd like to recognize the presence of His Excellency Eduardo Enrique Reina, who's the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the Government of Honduras, who are our hosts. A round of applause for our hosts. I would also like to acknowledge and recognize Her Excellency, the Right Honorable Helen Clark, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand and Board Chair of PMNCH, round of applause, and newly appointed member of the Elders. Yes, that's amazing. Also, to recognize the presence of Her Excellency Silveria Jacobs, the Prime Minister of Sint Maarten, the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Round of applause. Thank you, Prime Minister, for joining us and for gracing this invitation. And last but not least, in a cluster, to welcome warmly the heads of UN missions and national delegations that are in the room. If you're on a national delegation, please raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Honorable ministers in the room, thank you for gracing this event. Development partners, distinguished guests, and young people. Where are the young people? Let's hear you. Amazing. So without further ado, we are going to jump straight into this program because the GA week is fast and furious. And I think the theme of this event is acceleration. I would like to invite His Excellency Eduardo Enrique Reina to deliver a few welcoming remarks as the official host of this event. Your Excellency, please take the floor. Round of applause.
Señores ministros, excelencias, invitados, colegas de las Naciones Unidas y en especial a los jóvenes. Es un honor para mí brindarles en nombre de la Presidenta de la República de Honduras, Xiomara Castro Sarmiento, la bienvenida a esta reunión en ocasión de la Cumbre de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible, convocada por el Secretario General Antonio Guterres. Hemos tenido a bien invitarles para contribuir desde la presidencia de la Comisión sobre Población y Desarrollo y con el apoyo de ustedes acelerar los logros de todas aquellas metas relativas con la adolescencia y la juventud. Honduras es un país particularmente joven, con prácticamente el 45% de su población menores de 18 años. Este espacio y este momento en que nos encontramos en la mitad del camino hacia el plazo establecido para alcanzar las aspiraciones de la Agenda 2030, nos brinda una valiosa oportunidad para reflexionar sobre los avances logrados en la promoción del bienestar de las personas adolescentes y jóvenes durante las últimas décadas y para identificar áreas de oportunidades para fortalecer acciones, sumar esfuerzos e invertir los recursos necesarios. Estoy seguro de que este diálogo será fructífero y coadyuvará a fortalecer acciones urgentes que ya hemos tomado y otras que debemos de tomar en alianza con nuestros amigos y socios para promover la corresponsabilidad en lo que respecta a la implementación, ejecución y logros de la Agenda 2030. Y en ese sentido es mi deseo subrayar lo siguiente. La juventud del mundo tiene por futuro un horizonte de desarrollo, pero a la vez con grandes desafíos. Por un lado, deben ser los protagonistas y conductores de este proceso de desarrollo económico, social y político, con miras a la reducción de la pobreza y combatir las terribles condiciones que llevan a la grave desigualdad que impide que tengan estabilidad y que puedan ejercer de manera plena su desarrollo, mermando así su calidad de vida y el bienestar de nuestros pueblos, que se ven afectados terriblemente por un sistema económico que no permite oportunidades. La tarea es ardua, sin embargo, las personas jóvenes tienen el potencial para llevar a cabo los cambios estructurales que se requieren para lograr conciliar el desarrollo en el bienestar de todas las personas. Se ha logrado que tengan mejores niveles de educación por encima de las generaciones de jóvenes anteriores. Están adaptados a las nuevas tecnologías de producción, comunicación, manejo y procesamiento de información, cuyo conocimiento y uso será clave para el desempeño de las naciones y las sociedades en el futuro. La juventud de hoy se encuentra experimentando un ritmo incesante de cambios, lo que los está convirtiendo en una generación más flexible y resiliente ante las transformaciones de hoy y del futuro. No obstante, esta visión alentadora se ve opacada e incluso atentada por los altos niveles de exclusión social de la juventud, claramente reflejados en sus tareas de desempleo, alta brecha digital y marginación tecnológica, lo cual hace que se disparen los riesgos y que a diario experimentan siendo víctimas de conductas ilícitas, violentas, escapistas, de tipo demográfico y que además crean problemas con la migración, buscando nuevas oportunidades que a veces no encuentran. Ante tales desafíos nos queda trabajar en alianza y entre generaciones. En el gobierno de Honduras estamos en esa vía. Ejemplo de ello es la reciente decisión de la presidenta Castro Sarmiento para crear el 1 de enero de 2024 la Secretaría de Estado para los Despachos de la Niñez, Adolescencia y Familia. Con dicha decisión, nuestro gobierno reitera a nuestro pueblo y a la comunidad internacional el firme propósito de Honduras para abordar de manera integral los desafíos que afectan a este segmento de la población, en particular a quienes están en mayor condición de vulnerabilidad, reafirmando y acrecentando nuestro compromiso de no dejar a nadie atrás. Un elemento central de este esfuerzo gubernamental es crear un entorno inclusivo para las personas adolescentes y jóvenes hondureñas, aumentando su participación en la democracia, garantizando una educación y salud de calidad y el acceso a un empleo digno para lograr su bienestar, además de luchar contra conductas como la corrupción y mejorar también las capacidades de transparencia en beneficio de las nuevas generaciones. Desde lo multilateral, en colaboración con la campaña 1.8 billones de jóvenes en el cambio, nuestro objetivo es contribuir con el empoderamiento del grupo demográfico con mayor potencial para transformar nuestro mundo, invertir en la salud, la educación, la igualdad de género, el empoderamiento de los adolescentes y la juventud. No solo contribuye a su propio bienestar, tiene implicaciones de gran alcance para el desarrollo sostenible de toda la población. Las personas adolescentes son la columna vertebral de nuestra sociedad. Tenemos el compromiso de seguir dando espacio a los jóvenes y a su liderazgo para lograr la Agenda 2030, impulsándoles e incluyéndoles para que sus voces sean escuchadas y sobre todo considerando para fortalecer y mejorar los debates y las decisiones económicas, políticas y sociales. Estamos convencidos de que para que esto sea posible, es indispensable fortalecer el vínculo entre la Agenda de Desarrollo Sostenible, la Agenda de Población y Desarrollo. Solo con esa fórmula lograremos avanzar hacia el bienestar de personas adolescentes y jóvenes. Es entonces nuestra ambición como presidencia del CPD, robustecer el vínculo, hacerlo infranqueable, dejar claro que estas agendas que son fundamentales para el bienestar de nuestro planeta y de todos sus habitantes. Para lograrlo, reiteramos nuestro más franco y transparente deseo de establecer espacios de diálogo con todos los Estados miembros y las partes interesadas sobre el tema clave como el que estamos teniendo hoy aquí. Para finalizar, reitero mi confianza en que nuestro diálogo dará como resultado ideas valiosas e inspiraciones para los Estados miembros a movilizar compromisos que contribuyan a mejorar el bienestar de toda la juventud de cara al Foro Mundial para los Adolescentes en octubre próximo y a la Cumbre del Futuro 2024, alineados con los objetivos de la Comisión sobre Población y Desarrollo en ocasión del 30 aniversario de la Conferencia Internacional sobre Población y Desarrollo. Una vez más, doy mi cordial bienvenida y aguardo con interés el desarrollo de intercambios fructíferos que nos impulsen hacia un futuro más inclusivo, equitativo, próspero para todos. Unite, rise and lead. Felicidades a todos. Muchas gracias.
I think we can all do better than that. Another round of applause for Minister Reina. Minister, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule this week to represent these remarks on behalf of Her Excellency President Castro. And congratulations to you and Honduras for assuming chairship of the 57th session of the Commission on Population Development, and for your steadfast commitment as the Government of Honduras towards adolescent health, well-being, and development as a broader development agenda building into the Summit of the Future in 2025. I would now like to invite an esteemed poet and creative by the name of Ramya Ramana to deliver a short performance before we kick off today's more formal proceedings. Ramya, please come up.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to try that again. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay. This poem is called My Name Is. There was a girl whose name was Flower, and there was a girl whose name stretched out the ground. There was a girl who was always waiting for the sun, and there was a girl who was always looking to the things above her. There was a girl who was gone too soon, and there was a girl who died too young. There was a girl you've never met before, and this girl's name was a part of 1.8 billion. There was a girl whose name was a possession, and there was a girl who was made for somebody else. There was a girl who was always tired, and there was a girl who had her own roots and got her own water. There was a girl whose name is it raining yet? And there was a girl who settled for standing. There was a girl who was clothed in color, and there was a girl who was dressed in all black. There was a girl who always remembered everything she did wrong, and there was a girl who was remembered for everything she did wrong. There was a girl who was forgotten, and there was a girl who was always forgetting. There was a girl who huddled everyone's prayers and threw them into the ashes. And there was a girl who prayed ceaselessly until she saw the fruit. There was a girl who everyone watched burn. And there was a girl who made sure to make everyone burn. There was a girl who things always fell off of. And there was a girl who died slowly. There was a girl who was constantly being mistaken for a woman, and there was a girl who repeated like a gift. There was a girl who still was, and there was a girl whose name is I'll still be, and this is what that girl says. And I'll still get back up like a resurrection, and I'll still be an open grave, a death undone. And I'll still walk out of quicksand like my feet are rapture, like my hands are a double-edged sword, like my heart is the fall of Goliath, like my voice is the break room for angels, like God is working double shifts through my spine. My name is girl. My name is girl. My name is 1.8 billion. My name is what will you do for the rest of us? Thank you so much.
Again, I think we can do better than that. Thank you, Ramya. Thank you for that incredibly stirring poem and for emphasizing the importance of the largest generation of young people in human history, the 1.8 billion of us. If you're part of that 1.8 billion generation, let me hear you shout out. Round of applause for yourselves, for your leadership, and for your commitment to the development of our nations and the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So we know we're at the UN for the SDG Summit. We know we're here for the United Nations General Assembly. We know that we're at the midpoint to the year 2030, or 87 months away between now and the 31st of December 2030, to be more clear. But we've also got some other things to look forward to over the next few months. And those are namely the Global Forum for Adolescents, which is going to happen between the 11th to the 12th of October. Yeah. If you haven't registered, please follow the 1.8 social media platforms and the PMNCH social media accounts to get more details on how to register and participate. And as Minister Reina had mentioned, next year we see ourselves moving into the 57th Commission on Population Development, which will commemorate the 30th year of the International Conference on Population Development, which is an incredibly important milestone as we move towards the Summit of the Future. But this all is complicated and this all sounds lovely, but fundamentally what we want to do today is really to provide a space for member states who have been championing the adolescent health and well-being agenda to come forward and to really unpack the commitments that they've made towards this SDG Summit that center the health, the rights, the well-being and the development of the adolescents of their countries. But we also want to hear from adolescent leaders and young leaders themselves in terms of how we can deepen intergenerational cooperation, solidarity, leadership, and co-creation so that we can truly harness the power of this 1.8 billion cohort, which is the largest again in human history. With that being said, I would like to invite up our esteemed panelists who will be really engaging in a frank and light-hearted conversation geared towards an intergenerational discourse. First and foremost, I would like to invite Paolo, who is an adolescent champion from Bolivia. Paolo, please join us on the stage. A round of applause to Paolo, for Paolo rather. I would also then like to recognize and invite Dr. Bruce Aylward, who is the WHO's Assistant Director General of the Universal Health Coverage and Life Course Division at the World Health Organization. Dr. Aylward, I hear, is running late. No stress. We will find him when he comes. Secondly, I would like to invite Oliva Nalwadda, who is the Youth Ambassador of the FIA Foundation and the Child Health Initiative, and my fellow African sister. A round of applause for Oliva. And once more, I would like to invite and acknowledge the presence of the Right Honourable Helen Clark, the PMNCH Board Chair and former Prime Minister of New Zealand, to join us on stage. A round of applause for the Right Honourable. So a portion of this discussion will be done in Spanish. I invite you to use your interpretation devices that are on the tables, and you can tune into either the simultaneous translation in English or in Spanish. And if you are tweeting, please be sure to use the hashtag 1.8 to really amplify some of the key messages that are emanating from this intergenerational discussion. So let's get into it. Since time is of the essence, we'll make our own plan. So, Oliver, Paolo, and Helen, thank you so much for joining this intergenerational panel at this very important event that is focusing on accelerating the SDG commitments towards this largest generation of adolescents and really focusing on how we can accelerate our action and our support towards ensuring that adolescents and young people can transform the world between now and 2030. I'm going to start with you, Paola. I understand that you are an adolescent champion in Bolivia. I understand that you have really engaged quite deeply in your region and in your country with support from Plan International. And I really want to find out from you, what specific challenges do adolescents in Bolivia face, and how do some of these global commitments assist adolescents in addressing the shared challenges of adolescents in Bolivia?
Okay, so, bueno, En mi país, las adolescentes representamos el 32% de la población total, según el Instituto Nacional de Estadística. Hoy tengo el privilegio de estar aquí, pero no lo tiene Norma, amiga mía, que con tan solo 14 años tuvo que dejar la escuela para migrar a otro país y trabajar, dejando a su familia y amigos atrás. O Maribel, que a los 15 años quedó embarazada y tuvo que dejar el colegio porque ahora tenía que ser madre y una niña tenía que cuidar a otra niña. En cuanto a salud y bienestar de las adolescentes y jóvenes, uno de los desafíos en mi país es el sistema de creencias en la población de general, referidos a educación sexual y salud reproductiva. Por lo tanto, se debe facilitar el acceso a servicios e insumos amigables y sensibles al género, respetando la autonomía progresiva de nuestras decisiones y la libertad de elección en cuanto al ejercicio pleno de nuestros derechos. Acerca de la igualdad de género, ha existido un avance importante en los marcos normativos, pero no en su implementación efectiva. En nuestros países se reproduce una cultura patriarcal y machista que se ve reflejada a través de un contexto social, político y cultural restrictivo y conservador. Las mujeres y adolescentes estamos sujetas a normas de género que nos limitan el acceso a oportunidades, autonomía económica y la toma de decisiones, impactando aún más en áreas rurales donde la incidencia de la pobreza y el cambio climático es mayor. Esta referencia no es lejana a mí. Mi amiga Tatiana fue la primera mujer en terminar la escuela de su familia. Sin embargo, no pudo convertirse en la primera en recibir un título universitario porque tenía que ayudar a su madre a sostener su familia. La violencia basada en género sigue en aumento en mi país. Según datos del Ministerio Público, desde el 1 de enero hasta el 30 de septiembre del 2022, se registran 46.187 casos. Por esta razón, es preciso que los estados se involucren activamente y brinden espacios seguros a las jóvenes y adolescentes en toda su diversidad como actores de cambio y asuman compromisos claros a nivel económico, cultural y de voluntad política. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Paola, for those incredibly useful insights into the challenges that adolescents face in Bolivia, and for really unpacking the multidimensional nature of some of those challenges. You've spoken about the depravity of reproductive health and rights. You've spoken about the depravity of education. We've spoken about gender inequality and a number of factors. And thank you so much for bringing the voice of Maribel and Tatiana to this table. I know we recognize that these spaces are very privileged and we recognize our privilege in these spaces, but thank you for amplifying the voices of your community and constituency. Helen, you're a synonymous and reliable champion of young people. And I remember when we spoke on the streets of Delhi in June this year, and I asked you, what's the main message we should take into the UNGA and even into the G20? You summed it up by saying that we should listen to young people. Having heard Paolo's observations and unpacking of the multidimensional issues that adolescents face in Bolivia, I'd like to hear from you some of your thoughts on how you think the international community can ensure that commitments that are made here today and during this week are translated into tangible actions, especially in terms of meaningfully involving adolescents and young people in realizing these commitments? What are some of your thoughts?
Well, that's the issue, isn't it? How to go beyond the fine words that are spoken at summits to governments actually following through when leaders and ministers go home. And I think for ensuring accountability, we don't have a clear mechanism on the kinds of commitments that are made at meetings like these. And Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health is very busy mobilizing commitments to the 1.8 billion generation. So the accountability is going to have to come, I would think, largely from civil society and from adolescents and youth within civil society, goading on the rest of civil society to push the issues forward. I think we should also make sure that our parliamentarians are briefed, because it's their job also to hold governments to the commitments that they make, and also the news media. The news media are always interested when governments say things and don't follow through. You know, this is called hypocrisy, capital H. So ensuring that journalists are well briefed is important. I think Paola made such important comments about the relevance of access to sexual and reproductive health and rights for young people in her country, access to comprehensive sexuality education, the battle against gender-based violence. You know, young people need support on these issues. They need policies from governments that are supportive. And unless we deliver on those issues, we won't give the opportunities to young people, particularly young women, that they're looking for in our societies. So my encouragement is to adolescents and youth to speak up for those who have access to, as you described, you know, the privileged platforms like this. Take the message home, popularize it, encourage others to get involved as you are, and hold the decision makers' feet to the fire.
So young people in the room, you've heard it, hold their feet to the fire when it comes to accountability. And if anyone gives you any trouble, we know an elder in very high places who will provide the necessary political support and solidarity to ensure that your rights are realized. I think switching gears a bit, we've spoken about some challenges, we've spoken about what can be done to ensure that these commitments that are made here aren't just commitments on paper, but commitments in practice. But I think let's unpack what Helen said around the role of young people and civil society, and young people in civil society in particular. So I know, Oliva, you've been a part of this movement for quite a while now, and you've been doing some incredibly impressive work around mobilizing national commitments on adolescent health and well-being towards the Global Forum for Adolescents. I'd like to know in particular, what is the role that some young people have been playing in some of the countries that you've been working on in terms of mobilizing these commitments?
Thank you for that question. I think for most of the African countries where we've been working, and this includes countries like South Africa, Botswana, Mozambique, and Tanzania, young people are changing the narrative from being passive reactors to being key actors that are convening conversations with their peers on key issues that are affecting them. In countries such as Botswana, we have young people in rural communities having conversations with their peers on issues such as mental health and what their call to action from governments and global leaders should be in the commitment work. And also young people in urban areas are raising their concerns as well on key issues such as road traffic crashes that are affecting them. And they have gone beyond just convening the conversations to taking and amplifying their voices on technical working groups on the commitment work. So in some of the countries, it was unheard of to have adolescents and young people on technical working groups, but through the commitment work and through the youth-led advocacy, we've seen young people being engaged in these technical working groups, and they've been able to meaningfully ensure that the voices of their peers are included into the commitments that have been made. So briefly put, young people have taken a leadership role, and being an African, I'm so proud to see young people come up and claim their spaces, especially on such decision-making tables where commitments are being developed on issues that are concerning them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Oliva. I think we'll come back to tease out some of the finer details, but I think you've raised an incredibly important point around how young people have not really waited to be convened, but they've convened themselves, and they've convened their communities and their constituencies. And I think over lunch yesterday, you were telling me how this convening moment has not just been in person, but it's also been on social media. And I think that's also something that we should maybe unpack further in this conversation if time permits. On your comment on technical working groups, I think it's worth noting that the government of South Africa within the presidency, through this Global Forum for Adolescence Momentum, has taken a decision to establish a permanent working group on middle childhood and adolescence. And this has happened all exponentially within the last 17 weeks. And I think it's now time to see how these technical working groups really accelerate positive health and well-being outcomes for adolescents. Dr. Bruce, thank you for joining us, and thank you for finding time amidst this busy week. For those of you who don't know, there are 3 high-level meetings on health happening concurrently in this building over the next few days, so I can't imagine how packed your schedule is. If you might have missed it, we had Paola, a young leader from Bolivia, really sharing her experiences and her expertise in terms of the health and well-being realities of adolescents in Bolivia. And I think she unpacked a set of issues that are multidimensional, but there's the clear issue around the depravity of adolescents being able to access SRHR services, information and knowledge and education about their body, their health, and their rights. So I would like to hear from you in your capacity as an Assistant Director General at the World Health Organization. In your perspective, what strategies can the WHO employ to support the implementation of commitments by member states which focus on adolescent health, well-being, and development?
Thank you very much, Levy, and welcome everybody, and thank you all for coming out for such an important event, a chance to talk about the health issues and engagement around 1.8 billion people. My goodness, when Levy said, thanks for finding the time to come. Well, actually, with adolescents representing 1 in 4, 1.8 billion people, and you've heard how erudite, clear they are on what they need, you have to be here for events like this. So thank you all for coming and being part of it, and your patience with me coming in a few minutes, a couple of minutes late. As I came up on the stage, Levy said to me before turning over, he said, are you ready for your question? And I thought, I have no idea what the question is, so just go ahead. But coming back to the point that you did ask, though, about what we can do, like the World Health Organization in helping on the agenda, I think there's 3 or 4 very concrete things that we're trying to do. First of all, is make sure everybody is super clear how distinct and unique this population is. You are not old children, you're not young adults, you are an adolescent population with very specific issues like we just heard about that affect this group, and being very, very clear on that. And then creating fora, number 1, to hear what the issues that really concern them are ongoing for us. So we established a youth council this year, and the purpose of the youth council is to advise us at WHO as to what your issues are, because we think we know, but I'm a little bit older than you guys are, and Helen's a little bit older than me. So we need to hear from you. No, she's not. She's younger than me. We need to hear from you directly, right? So we created a youth council, and Dr. Tedros's idea in doing that was make sure the people who are in the room, so we're dealing with their issues. So that was number 1. The second thing is we are a member state organization. We're not an organization of ourselves. We're 194 countries. And what we can do is work with our member states and encourage them that just as we're creating a youth council, they start creating mechanisms as well. And one of the very concrete things we did is for our World Health Assembly, we went out to member states and asked them to have a youth delegate and have young people on their delegations, speaking to the assembly. And, you know, somebody said to me, well, there were only 9 interventions by adolescents. Well, that's twice as much as the last time, and maybe it'll be double the next time. But we're trying to put the voices right in there, which is super important as well. And then to the point that that you just made, Olivia, we're trying to make sure on those working groups, and here I think we're doing a better job, tell me if we're not, in trying to make sure those voices are there as we create our accelerated action, you know, the AHA plan for it is with and by adolescents. So, you know, we're late, everyone is, but I think we're starting to get it. And we're starting to create concrete mechanisms to use the power of a multilateral platform to really make sure the adolescent voices are heard, they're engaged, and sustainably, right, on an ongoing. This is not an ad hoc groups that we've set up or mechanisms. We're trying to build it as we go forward. So those are a couple of things that we are trying to do. And it's crucial. 1.8 billion people with very distinct issues and needs, and they've got to be part of you have to be part of that process.
Dr. Bruce, for those very clear and very insightful actions that the WHO has been taking over the next 4 years. I liked your differentiation around how we need to share, we need to create a shared understanding around adolescence and what adolescence means at a member state level. And I think speaking from the Global South, and you would concur, Oliver, there is a prevalent sense that adolescents are put in 2 buckets. They're either big children or they're little adults. And there's no real coherence in terms of a shared understanding of this being a unique development phase and having programs, policy, and legislation that really responds to this unique development phase. So thank you so much for some of those insights. I've been informed by the producers that we only have 5 minutes left of this panel, so I'm going to move us towards wrapping up. And giving the word back to young people. So, Oliver and Paola, I understand that you both are incredibly passionate, you both represent your constituencies and communities immensely well, but I'd really like to get your insights in how adolescents and young people can actively engage with heads of states and ministers to hold them accountable for the commitments that they're making today and for the next few days at this high-level session. We can start with you, Oliver, and then go to Paola.
Yeah, thank you. I think it starts with a collaboration between young people and the stakeholders to design systemic accountability mechanisms that can fast track the implementation and the evaluation of the progress in implementing these commitments. And it should go beyond establishing the accountability mechanisms to funding the implementation as well as the follow-up. Because so often in countries like Uganda, where I come from, it ends on establishing a committee. But in order for that committee to be functional, we need to invest in its functionality and make sure that we review progress periodically to ensure that the commitments are not only progressing, but also that the goal that we've set jointly as a country are being achieved and realized with the young people meaningfully engaged, or better yet, at the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping that short and sharp, Oliver. A round of applause. That was really concise. In essence, if I had to put what you said on a t-shirt, it would say, show us the money. And I mean, that's such a critical point. Less than 1.6% of all ODA has gone towards adolescent health, well-being, and development over the last decade. So you've got to show this largest cohort of young people in human history the money. Paola, what are some of your thoughts in terms of accountability with heads of state and ministers?
Bueno, para responder esta pregunta, quiero contarles sobre la red de jóvenes y adolescentes en mi comunidad, la cual nace en 2015 a partir de 2 proyectos implementados por Plan International Bolivia. Uno, el Armonía y Saberes, proyecto por los derechos sexuales y derechos reproductivos, y el otro proyecto Venciendo la violencia sexual. Desde mis 13 años soy parte de esta red. Para mí fue reveladora a tan corta edad, porque me permitió dar a conocer mi historia y conocer las historias de otras adolescentes en mi comunidad, permitiéndome empatizar con sus realidades, las cuales conviven en un solo espacio. Y esto me movilizó para ser un agente de cambio en mi comunidad, siendo transformada por este proceso y permitiendo transformar a otros y a mi entorno. Nuestra participación como red de jóvenes y adolescentes nos llevó a abrir nuevas puertas de articulación, trabajando en proyectos concretos con instancias públicas. Uno de ellos, la trata y tráfico de personas. Otro logro fue el equipamiento de nuestra red, haciéndonos corresponsables del diseño de políticas públicas ajustadas a nuestras propias necesidades y desafíos, que aseguren a su vez el ejercicio de nuestros derechos en toda nuestra diversidad y desde nuestras propias voces, dándole nombre y rostro a estadísticas que pueden ser lejanas y despersonalizadas. Replicar este tipo de experiencias y generar condiciones para que sean espacios seguros de participación de jóvenes y adolescentes es una condición necesaria en este proceso y no se puede dejar de lado para garantizar la implementación de políticas públicas, inversión, articulación multisectorial y rendición de cuentas en estas áreas tan importantes como lo es la salud y la educación. Como jóvenes, nuestra motivación es seguir trabajando para que nadie se quede atrás, y ustedes como autoridades pueden acelerar este proceso de acción y colaboración. Gracias.
Thank you, Paola, for outlining those incredibly useful steps that member states and development partners can take in accelerating some of the commitments that have been made towards adolescent health, well-being, and development more broadly. I'm going to go to Helen for one sentence in terms of takeaway for the young leaders, especially in the room. And then Dr. Bruce, if you'd like to also just keep it to one sentence in terms of what you'd like the adolescent leaders in this room to take away, that would be appreciated. Let's start with you, Helen.
A takeaway from me is please continue to use the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health platforms for meaningful youth engagement. We've put a lot of effort into it. We have a very active constituency, 110 adolescent youth organizations affiliated, youth throughout our leadership structures. So use the platform that we have in order to advance the objectives for adolescent health and well-being.
Thank you, Helen. Dr. Bruce?
Thank you very much. The takeaway for me is continue to create the platforms where the adolescents populations can tell us what their issues are, what they need, what they want from us, and they can guide us, as you've heard very, very clearly. And thank you very much, Olivia and Paola, for doing that. You're super clear. And we at the World Health Organization take that very, very seriously. And we also take seriously that not only do you need an action plan, but you have to be able to measure against it and measure against it with your member states. By the way, we have a number of member states that are actually nodding as we say these things. So something is getting through today, Paola and Olivia. And I mean, thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of it. We are with you as you go forward. Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Bruce. A round of applause for our panel and for the young leaders represented in the room. And thank you all for the insights. Please, you could take your seats and go back to your sumptuous lunches. Now, shifting gears and moving to the next segment of today's event, I think the moment many of us have been waiting for beyond the intergenerational panel really pertains to the announcement of member state commitments. So we're very privileged to have senior government officials in the room, and I'm going to invite a few of them up in batches to really take the floor and to give us a snapshot of the commitments that they are making towards adolescent health, well-being, and development. So without further ado, I'd like to invite the Honorable Silveria Jacobs, who is the Prime Minister of Saint Maarten, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, to have a seat on the podium. I would also like to invite the Honorable Kabo Morwaeng, the Minister for Presidential Affairs, Governance and Public Administration, the Government of Botswana. A round of applause. Let's keep the applause going. I would also like to invite the Honorable Ahmed Hussen, who is the Minister of International Development, Government of Canada. Minister, please join us. I would like to invite the Honorable Zeogar Wilson, the Minister of Youth and Sport, Government of Liberia, to also join us. And last but not least, I'd like to invite the Honorable John Sendeza, the Minister of Gender in the Government of Malawi, the warm heart of Africa, to join us. I would like to remind the Honorable Ministers that they have 2 minutes to present their respective national commitments. Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Similar to our poet, I'm an educator that is used to receiving a response, and I want to say thank you for setting that trend this afternoon and also inspiring. As a girl myself, I'm truly inspired by your words and can find myself in all of them. We definitely need creatives to set the stage to be able to forward the SDGs. Distinguished guests, today I stand before you to address you on behalf of my tiny island nation, Saint Maarten, an autonomous country within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, situated in the Northeastern Caribbean. In preparing for today, I read something very, very important. Youth are engines of growth and development, active participants, but they must be active participants. Who agrees that that is very, very necessary? But there were some prerequisites for them to be active participants. It requires us. It requires us as governments and other stakeholders within the community, international agents, NGOs, CSOs, and what we in Saint Maarten call the village that's needed to raise each young person to be the best that they can be. I started out as a teacher. I started out touching lives individually, and that is what inspired me to reach to this level. I'm convinced that all of us stand to gain if we are truly serious about incorporating the voices of young people. As adolescents and young people navigate the path towards a brighter future, we must recognize and appreciate the immense significance of nurturing your well-being and providing you with the support, tools, and skills that you need to thrive. I want to repeat, young people must be actively engaged. And as governments and your village, it is our responsibility to do that by actively listening. In the Saint Maarten context, I want to bring something to you. Following the devastation of Hurricane Irma in 2017, so we initiated the Child Resilience and Protection Project in collaboration with UNICEF. This project focused on nurturing emotional well-being by creating a school-based screening tool, implementing a psychosocial program for students as well as their caregivers, and providing violence prevention training for teachers. Because we know you were going through a trauma and we needed to be aware of that to be able to address this. The project focuses on nurturing emotional well-being by creating a school-based screening tool, as I said, and it's aligned with our national development vision for St. Maarten for a prosperous and resilient future. We like to talk about the youth are our future, but there is no future unless we engage them today. So while addressing the immediate needs of our youth, we must seek to address the long-term goals and fostering more collaboration. And for such, we have a very active youth parliament. We have a youth council that supports all of our youth organizations. And trust me, when they hit the floor of parliament, they hit us hard. And we listen. We take them along. We have youth conferences and ensure that they are supported in everything they do. As a matter of fact, a lot of what we're struggling with to put into policies and programs, just walk into any science fair and you see it in front of you. They are much more aware. And I think since they're the engines, we need to engage them even more and make achieving the SDGs cool. Last night, I was very much inspired by the artists, the poets, the singers, the dancers, and the musicians. And I think that's the role that we need to play to ensure that they have a voice, because TikTok and social media is gonna be the way that we make the change. Make the SDGs cool, make gender equality cool, make getting healthcare to every person cool. And it is gonna be your generation that does it. And we are here to support that.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be very short. She said 2 minutes. Botswana, ladies and gentlemen, recognizes that addressing adolescents' well-being is not only a moral imperative, but also a strategic investment for the country's future. To that end, I'm delighted to announce that my country has developed a national commitment on adolescents' well-being, a blueprint that aligns seamlessly with the SDGs. This commitment is the result of extensive consultations with the diverse stakeholders, including the very adolescents whose lives it seeks to enhance. Ladies and gentlemen, this blueprint seeks to address the multifaceted challenges that adolescents in Botswana grapple with daily, being challenges in health, education, and employment, gender-based violence, road safety issues, and others. These challenges encompass a spectrum of issues, among them school dropouts, particularly for adolescent girl child, low rates of progression from secondary to tertiary education, health-related concerns such as sexually transmitted infections and HIV, mental health issues, drug and alcohol abuse, as well as the escalating prevalence of overweight and obesity. The commitment also seeks to address road traffic injuries and deaths as faced by this group, including physical, sexual, and psychological forms of gender-based violence within schools, communities, and society at large. It will also tackle anxiety among adolescents caused by unemployment in Botswana. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the Republic of Botswana stands resolute in its unwavering commitment to holistic well-being of its adolescents. Our national commitment on adolescents' well-being is not just a declaration, but a steadfast promise, one that underscores our dedication to empowering the young minds who will shape our nation's future. We are committed to forging a future where every adolescent's potential blossoms, their dreams thrive, and their voices resonate. Thank you very much.
Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the government of Liberia and His Excellency Dr. George Manawia, President of the Republic of Liberia, I am delighted to be here today to join the many voices in raising attention to the need for immediate action to advance the significant determinants of adolescents' well-being. We commend the government of Honduras, the Commission on Population and Development Chair, and its principal supporters, including the World Health Organization and the United Nations Population Fund, the UNFPA, for this event. Indeed, adolescents and young people hold a key to a sustainable future for our world. Their health and well-being are critical to the overall development of any society, and therefore must be protected against threats and limit growth opportunities. Today, nearly 60% of Liberia's population is under 25. Adolescents and youth aged 10 to 24 comprise almost 36% of the people. Adolescents discover who they are, what they aspire to be, and the risk they face on their journey to adulthood. They understand how their identities relate to those around them and learn to deal with society expectations, facing stigma and discrimination due to gender, sexuality, HIV, disabilities, and other status can make this passage incredibly challenging. Adolescents and young people in many parts of the world, including my country, Liberia, especially adolescent girls, face multiple socio-economic challenges and impede their growth and development into productive adults. Teenage pregnancy, sexual and gender-based violence, and harmful practices, including female genital mutilation, hinder the growth of adolescents and young people in Liberia. Excellencies, the government of Liberia recognizes the importance of providing resources and opportunities for all adolescents and young people to reach their full potential as individuals and citizens. We know that health, education, productive and fully engaged young people can help break the cycle of intergenerational poverty and are more resilient in their face of individual and societal challenges. As skilled and informed citizens, they can contribute more fully to their communities and nations. Excellencies, what we cited are the major highlights of what my government has committed to, although I did not have the time to say that due to time. Ensuring the well-being of adolescents and young people is the foremost priority of the government of Liberia. Thank you.
Bonjour, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Minister Enrique, Reina, for convening this really important dialogue. And of course, thank you to the youth leaders for today, for sharing your ideas and your calls to action. We really, really appreciate this opportunity to be with you. And it's an honor for us to join you and to hear your perspectives, your dynamism, your hope for the future, and you, quite frankly, to observe your leadership in action. In a world where young people represent the future, it is imperative that we really invest heavily in their well-being, we amplify their voices, we invest in their capacity, and we work together to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals. Unfortunately, the needs and voices of our adolescents and our youth, especially girls, have often been overlooked. But let me be clear. These voices must be at the forefront of everything that we do if we are to achieve real meaningful change. They must be at the center of decision-making that affects their bodies, their lives, and their future. And they must simply have a seat at the table, a meaningful seat at the table. And I'm here today to tell you that this is, quite frankly, a key priority for Canada. In fact, attention to the needs of adolescent girls in particular is at the core of Canada's feminist international assistance policy. Through this 10-year commitment to global health and rights, this is what we're doing. We're championing the rights of women and girls around the world by providing an average of $1.4 billion a year to make that happen. And out of that, $700 million will be dedicated to sexual and reproductive health and rights. And by doing so, we're making adolescent sexual, reproductive, and health and rights a priority. And we're working towards, thank you. We're working towards a future where every adolescent and young person understands their bodies, their rights, their capacity to change themselves and their communities. And, you know, in my travels, I see every single day that youth are not, adolescents are not the leaders of tomorrow, they're the leaders of today. I've seen them make a huge difference in the lives of their communities. And I see adolescents through our work being valued, being empowered, and being trusted to help us solve the challenges of today and tomorrow. And I can tell you, there's absolutely nothing to fear from having adolescents participate in decision-making that affects them, their homes, and their communities. And when they do so, and when they're meaningfully empowered to do so, they can contribute to and benefit from development, prosperity, and better outcomes for all of us, not just for them. That's the world that I'd like for all of us to strive together for. And that's the world that Canada is seeking to build with our feminist international assistance policy. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I would like to report that the Malawi government conducted a gap analysis on SDGs, which led to adolescent being. The gap analysis exercise has helped Malawi to identify progress made, challenges, recommendations, the commitments, and campaign areas. I wish to report that the exercise involved the adolescents who came from all corners of the country, and the work is ongoing. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies, I'm pleased to inform the SDG Summit that Malawi has 35.1% adolescents of the gap of 10 to 24 years, at 17.4% males and 17.7% females, which is higher than the global 25%. Therefore, Malawi is making the following commitments. In the good health and well-being domain, Malawi government commits to increase government's allocation for family planning 2030 from the current Malawi currency 570 million to 1 billion, strengthen logistical management to prevent stockouts from the current 60% to 80%, and fast track the provision of community-based sexual rights health services for adolescents from 30% to 50%. Under the optimum nutrition, Malawi government therefore commits to provide micronutrients and nutrition support to 50% of adolescents to prevent nutritional deficiencies and reduce anemia from 35% to 10%. In the connectedness, positive values, and contribution to society domain, the government has put in place mechanisms to reduce child marriages from 42% to 30%, sexual violence from 22% to 5%. And in relation to the 80% of legal and policy instruments which promote gender equality, the Malawi government commits to increase the overall budget allocation to the gender agenda budget to 1% from the 0.4%. Excellencies, I have a lot that I should say. I know that my time is not permitting, but allow me, because this is a very important issue that we are discussing here. I have to make the statement so that our girls, the adolescents, they have to hear that as a government, we are doing something. Under the safety and supportive environment, the Malawi government commits to implement the labor strategy, which was launched in 2022, whose main aim is to train 50% of the adolescents in skills development tailored to self-employment and provide aligned targeted loans to the skills on value chain addition. In addition, the school dropout rate is high due to high pupil teacher ratio, inadequate learning materials, accommodation, and equipment for primary, secondary, tertiary, vocation, and universities. The Malawi government commits to reduce the 60% primary to 77% and 85% respectively. Excellencies, I know I've run out of time, but just to make a conclusion that I would like to reaffirm my government's commitment to the Global Forum for Adolescents and the Adolescent Well-being campaign. The Malawi leader will personally anchor the Adolescent Well-being campaign on 5th October and join the 11 to 12 virtual campaigns. I thank you, Your Excellencies. Thank you.
A more rapturous round of applause for the commitments that you've heard. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable Ministers, for your incredible and decisive leadership. I invite you to take your seats and continue with enjoying your meals. I would now like to invite up His Excellency Sanjay Verma, the Vice Minister of External Affairs, the Government of India. Minister Verma, please join us. I would like to call upon His Excellency Dubravka Soyka, the Vice President of the European Commission, to join us. My apologies, her. Your Excellency, please join us on stage. I would like to invite the Ambassador Jorge Arnanda, Deputy Permanent Representative of Portugal, to join us on stage. And I would also like to invite Her Excellency Amani Abou-Zeid from the African Union Commission for Infrastructure and Energy to join us. And last but not least, I would like to invite the Director, Eduardo Yarmilo Narvete, the Director General for United Affairs at the Secretariat for Foreign Affairs, the Government of Mexico, to join us on stage. Do we have His Excellency Verma in the house? Please join us, Your Excellency. I would like to stress to our distinguished ministers and commissioners to keep their remarks as brief as possible and to adhere to the big red clock that is situated right in front. Your Excellency Verma, please take the floor. Your Excellency Verma, please take the floor. Just how we love it. Go ahead, sir.
Well, 1.8 billion, but we are the youngest country on the planet. We are the most populous. So out of the 1.8, I think easily 9 to 9.5 is our take. So you're essentially talking about us. Well, there's a huge temptation before me. Either I play it like international school homeroom class and give out platitudes, or since we are the UN, bring home some hard truths. And I think I'm going to do that. Sorry. Okay, when we were young, nobody asked us what we wanted to do, what we aspired. I think this is the first time in human history that the voice of the youth is being heard. So congratulations. We did a bit in G20. We had an event supporting the 1.8 campaign. Happy to do that. But now there are challenges. The biggest challenge is you have to get granular. I mean, I can't speak like a Canadian or a Dutch is going to be a nice, happy place, forget it. The youth from the West, when he grows up, is going to protect his or her interests while you'll be struggling with your own. So one hard truth is there are no free lunches in the world. Countries will have to generate their own wealth from their own strengths, from their own abilities. Conversations suggesting that Santa Claus is all around doesn't happen. And this is the UN, you better learn it. You've got to grow up into a very hard and harsh world. The challenges for the youth, there's several challenges. One is there's this notion that the youth is similar all over the world. It is, it isn't. It is in the sense, and this is a challenge for us, that global media has the singularity moment in youth aspirations makes youth, whether you're in the US or you're in Chennai, have similar aspirations, similar attitudes to life, forgetting where they are. So if you think you're a kid in Mumbai, in the slums of Mumbai, and you think you're going to have the same aspirations like a welfare state in Western Europe with a kid, doesn't work. So while you may have common aspirations, please get granular about your own reality or the challenges you will face. Fortunately for us, most of us are in fledgling democracies, voices are heard. Kids are either consumers or citizens. In any case, you have a voice, you have social media, you have Twitter. You can send a message to the Prime Minister and it is heard. That wasn't the case. But look back, think of the comparative advantages your own country has. Don't think always of getting a scholarship and flying out to a Western country and then that is reality for most of you. I mean, this itself may be a good opportunity to put your name on a CV and get admission to a fancy university. So a lot of kids will have to take the hard call of staying back. I'm going to cut it short here because I don't want to spoil the mood of the other speakers, but kids, get real. The world is real. It's not an after party all the time. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear young people, I'm really delighted to speak to you on behalf of the European Union, on behalf of the European Commission. We believe that we need the vision, engagement, and participation of all young people to build a greener, inclusive, fair, and just future. We recognize children and adolescents as key drivers of the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. We therefore took concrete measures to better support their well-being and to empower and engage youth inside the European Union and globally. We also, through our Spotlight initiative, we protect adolescent girls from gender-based violence. And I have announced day before yesterday on Sunday, an additional 16 million euros is passed here at United Nations. The European Union is the leading donor to the Global Partnership on Education with 700 million euros. We have launched our first ever Youth Action Plan in External Action, a policy framework for a strategic partnership with young people around the world. It ensures that our external policies and programs contribute to youth empowerment and participation at all levels of society. It delivers on the United Nations 2030 Agenda and the Paris Climate Agreement. First, we engage. by increasing the voice and leadership of young people, especially of girls. We have therefore launched a Women and Youth in Democracy initiative. Second, we empower. Through a new Youth Empowerment Fund, we will facilitate young people's ability to fund their own actions that promote sustainability. Finally, we connect by increasing opportunities for young people to connect, network, and exchange with their peers. So engage, empower, connect. We must enable young people to fulfill their potential to be able to contribute to prosperous societies. And I firmly believe that the strength of any society is determined by how much we invest in the well-being of our young generation to achieve intergenerational justice and also fairness, and to make our planet future-proof. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just have to briefly remind speakers to keep their remarks as concise as possible. And with that, I'd like to invite Her Excellency Amani Abu, the Commissioner for the AUC.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was not scheduled to speak. I insisted to ask for the floor for two things, no, three. Because, well, I'm the Africa's Commissioner in charge of energy, of digitalization, and of transport. And I want to remind everybody that more than half of Africa does not have access to electricity. I want to remind everybody that 90% of our population in the continent do not have access to clean cooking, and that early death in the continent, the major contributor to that is the fact that we are not using clean cooking. And the majority of those who are hurt are women and children. Not only early death, but also girls lose like 4 or 5 hours each day to get firewood or to help, with the cooking that on charcoal and other things. So our commitment at the African Union is that ensure that each and every African has access to electricity, but also clean cooking. And we have elevated that in our African Common Position on Energy since last year. And I'm happy to report that even this year, the ministers who met last week, we are now, the clean cooking is very much part of our strategy and all our programs. This is one. Second, we cannot talk about youth and betterment of life, education, connection, advocacy without digitalization. So we are committing ourselves for meaningful connectivity to everyone, especially girls. And thanks to the African Union efforts, together with the Broadband Commission, the global one, and many of our initiatives like Smart Africa, but also other initiatives, global initiatives, we are committed to one, connecting each and every African, each and every household, each and every enterprise on the continent with high-speed internet to skills, especially for girls, but also safety and security online. We are revising all our protocols or our cybersecurity strategies to ensure safety and security of our children and youth, particularly online. Third, we are talking about FIA. We cannot not talk about transport. And also, thanks to the African Union, the work that we do, but also the great advocacy done by FIA, we are revising the way we are looking at safety, road safety, to make sure that girls and women's safety in transport is very well part of that, and that we are changing all our strategies accordingly. I could not lose this opportunity without highlighting this to all of you. There was a time when I was one of those 1.8 billion, but alas, it's no longer the case. But anyway, we're doing our best. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that really useful reminder about the challenges that the African continent is facing, and also the fact that the African continent is home to the largest generation of African and adolescents and young people, with 60% of the population being under the age of 35. I would like to now invite His Excellency Ambassador Jorge Arnanda, the Deputy Permanent Representative of Portugal, to deliver his remarks. And then it will be the Director Eduardo Hermila Navarrete, the Director General of United Nations Affairs, the Government of Mexico. You have the floor, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. And thank you also for the invitation to be here, to all the organizers, in particular, the Government of Honduras. I will use my 1.8 minutes to give you just 3 brief points. The first one is just to highlight the commitment of Portugal to the youth agenda. We believe it has no need to introduction, but still, we just wanted to point that we annually present both here in New York and in Geneva resolutions on the youth and also in issues related to youth. But we were also the ones who hosted in 1998 the first ever World Conference on Youth. And we hosted it again a couple of years later in 2019, and we produced there a declaration called Lisbon Plus 21, which has very specific commitments towards young people. The second point I would like to make is that we are also staunch supporters of the agenda of the Secretary General of the United Nations, my Portuguese fellow man, Mr. Antonio Guterres, and also the fact that supporting a youth agenda means supporting an agenda of sustainable development, because working for you, the 1.8 billion is also working for the future. So the green transition, the digital transition, the social inclusion, the gender equality, and also decent opportunities for jobs and education is also part of our job. And finally, but last but not least, there is one point I would like to make, because nothing about youth can be decided without the youth. So for us, one fundamental principle of our youth policy is that discussing the future of youth has to involve the youth. So your voices have to be heard. You have to have a say in your future. We see you and we hear you. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, distinguidas excelencias. Agradezco la invitación del gobierno de Honduras, de Partnership for Women, Children, Adolescents Health, la Organización Mundial de la Salud, el Fondo de Población de las Naciones Unidas. Muchas personas piensan erróneamente que ser joven significa ser una persona inacabada, incompleta. Ya Paola mostró la visión inteligente, comprometida e integral que un joven puede tener. Un gran ejemplo, Paola. Este es uno de los retos más grandes a los que se enfrentan las juventudes. Sus derechos, inquietudes y propuestas son considerados a medias, no son atendidos cabalmente. La juventud no está alcanzando su máximo potencial debido al fracaso de las políticas e inversiones públicas que puedan satisfacer cabalmente sus expectativas y sus derechos. En México, las personas adolescentes y jóvenes son reconocidas como plenos sujetos de derecho y como agentes de cambio fundamentalmente. El presidente Andrés Manuel López Obrador ha invertido prioritariamente en esta población. Destaco el programa Jóvenes Construyendo el Futuro, que ha beneficiado a más de 2.6 millones de personas jóvenes y a la población en general. Algunos de estos jóvenes precisamente se encuentran en este espacio. En el contexto de la Cumbre de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible y con la intención de priorizar las políticas e inversiones que tienen efectos multiplicadores en los ODS, tengo el agrado de compartir que México ha suscrito los compromisos de esta campaña basada en 5 ejes prioritarios: salud y nutrición, conexión, valores positivos y contribución a la sociedad, seguridad y entorno de apoyo, aprendizaje y competencias, educación, habilidades y empleabilidad, así como agencia y resiliencia. Para consolidar estas acciones, Es indispensable fortalecer alianzas multisectoriales y coordinar esfuerzos entre los países para contribuir a un verdadero desarrollo sostenible, con las personas adolescentes y jóvenes estando en el centro de las políticas y de las preocupaciones de la sociedad. Para ello se requerirá de una conciencia colectiva que considere la inversión en adolescencias y juventudes como la mejor, la más rentable para reducir las brechas de inequidad y garantizar un futuro mejor para todos. También es imprescindible la participación de personas jóvenes en las discusiones y negociaciones, así como en la toma de decisiones en todos los niveles, incluyendo estos espacios de las Naciones Unidas. Los países debemos garantizar su inclusión en estos espacios. En octubre próximo, el Foro Global para Adolescentes será una gran oportunidad para que las y los adolescentes participen y sean escuchados. Desde el Gobierno de México celebramos este espacio y esperamos que nos permita avanzar en la salud, la educación y el bienestar de las juventudes. Muchas gracias.
You can keep the round of applause going. A big round of applause to the respective excellencies. You can proceed back to your seats. A huge round of applause to your respective excellencies, the honorable ministers, the representatives of government for their dynamicism, for their bold commitments, for their transformative leadership, and for their continuing commitments towards a progressive agenda. With these commitments, though, comes an essential ingredient of partnership and collaboration. And to talk briefly about the importance of partnership and collaboration between now and 2030 to accelerate action for adolescent health and well-being, I would like to invite Her Excellency Ms. Tamara Vucic, the First Lady of Serbia, as well as the Deputy Executive Director of the UNFPA, Madame Diana Kete, to give us a short snapshot on the importance of partnership and what the UNFPA as well as the First Lady of Serbia can do in their capacities to work with member states to accelerate these commitments. Please join us. Apologies for that housekeeping. Madame, Your Excellency, please join us. Madame Kete, feel free to join us as well. You could feel free to use the lectern or speak from the seat. Sure, thank you.
Thank you. At the outset, I would like to underline that it gives me a great honor and pleasure to be here today in this very important gathering and in the company of distinguished attendees. But what makes me particularly happy is the topic of the conference and clear intention to pay attention to the adolescents and to the young ones in a way that we will remain to be their guide and their direction, but we will try to listen to them, to what they have to say, to listen to their ideas, to listen to their positions, and to pay attention to their position towards life and world. We'll do it in a way that will be smart enough to include and involve them to help us in achieving sustainable development goals. We should rely on their creativity, rely on their knowledge, motivation, enthusiasm, but also courage and decisiveness, because these are the foundations on which we can build better and brighter future. In my country, there is a saying that the world relies on young ones, and that is so true because the world does rely on 1.8 billion young ones aged between 10 and 24 years. when we speak about the exceptional individuals, the persons who can contribute to this partnership between adolescents and adults, I believe that today every one of us has some kind of influence, spreads some kind of influence, because each individual shares beliefs and position to its environment, more or less in a subtle way, by sharing its words, by its habits, by its behavior. And this environment today is quite a big one because of media and social networks. At some other conference, I focused on negative sides of social networks and the dangerous ones as well. But especially that close connection between mental health issues and the use of social networks. But I believe it's time at the moment to find and to make a balance and to try to note and to acknowledge some positive sides of social networks, which we as an individuals can use to promote knowledge, to promote true values, to promote support, understanding. And because media as a whole, they are very powerful means of communication, and we should, together with the young ones, use that. Maybe we should organize and start globally a campaign to involve adolescents, to help us, so to try to make a campaign that will be done and made by adolescents for adolescents. Of course, we will be their guides and their direction, but and give them a piece of advice if they ask for it. But for example, when they ask me to give a piece of advice to the young ones, but I think I will include all the other persons here. One of the way is to, I think every single person should have a hobby, and that's especially important for the young ones, because that hobby can evolve into something like a profession, but it can remain just a hobby. But hobbies can change the perspective. It can shift the perspective to some completely different level, and can make you a better person, and can make and change your environment. And that's why you can change your microcosmos and of course the world. I would like to emphasize one important thing, and that is the Republic of Serbia has recently applied for membership to the UN Commission on Population and Development. And we went even further by sharing our commitments, which are signed by our Minister for Family Welfare and Demography. And I would like to encourage the other countries to do the same and to follow our path. Also, at the proposal of the Republic of Serbia and our host today, Honduras, among other countries, the United Nations General Assembly unilaterally adopted on August 25th a resolution named the International Decade for Sciences for Sustainable Development. And that is our way to encourage also adolescents to follow that path of science and to use science in a good way. At the end, I know, we don't have much time. Another concrete thing that the Republic of Serbia has done is that the school year in my country started with a new elective subject named Values and Virtues as a compass, as a life compass. Me being a mother, I find this very supportive and helpful, and from various perspectives, very important and multiple beneficiary. We wanted to encourage young ones to dream big, but to never forget the true values. Finally, the young ones are beyond any doubts the development engine, as we heard it today, of every society. Their help is of big importance for the work on achieving sustainable development goals, but not just because of how many there are of them, but because of their energy, of their more fresh and more forward perception of the world and life. And I believe that's exactly what we need today for the world to become better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam First Lady. And I'd like to invite the Deputy Executive Director of UNFPA to give us remarks. I see your brother at the end over there from UNAIDS, so sorry.
Excellencies, esteemed UN colleagues, dear young people, all protocol observed, good afternoon. What a lunch. I'm really happy to be part of this event and to represent United Nations Population Fund. And first and foremost, I would like to express my gratitude to the government of Honduras for extending this invitation to us. Muchísimas gracias, excelentísima embajadora. Honduras, as the president of the current 57th Commission for Population and Development, is serving as a crucial partner in our shared mission that seeks to accelerate the achievement of the promise made nearly 3 decades ago in Cairo as the International Conference on Population and Development. In our world of 8 billion, we proudly acknowledge the transformative power of 1.8 billion young people. This dynamic demographic is reshaping our world in a ways that command attention and action. You are the true agent of change and you take no nonsense. What young people want, we've heard your voice loud and clear. Paola and Oliva were great representatives. You are asking more than words, you are asking action, and you require those plans. Therefore, I truly celebrate the powerful commitment made by the member states here today in support of adolescent health and well-being. We count on you, member states. We need you for our young people. Let's celebrate partnership. The SDG will be reached through partnership. UNFPA remain resolutely committed to working together with all our partners, including the Partnership for Maternal and Child Health and our UN partner, including WHO and UNICEF and UNAIDS. Together with government, we work forward to working with you in fulfilling these commitments. This is a vital priority which we plan to carry forward as we prepare the Global Forum for Adolescents on the 11th of October this year. ICPD at 30 next year, as well as the Summit of the Future for the period ahead of us. Young people, you want us to walk the talk. Join us. Early next year, UNFPA will be convening a global youth dialogue as part of our worldwide action to mark the ICPD 30. This dialogue aimed to unite organizations. There are so many networks of young people, the networks, and all the movement around the world. Together, we'll assess progress, confront challenges, and identify solutions to accelerate the realization of the ICPD program. Excellencies, PMNCH, under the leadership of the Right Honorable Helen Clark, is a trusted partner. Madam Helen, congratulations for joining the elite among the elite of the elders. Together, we can shape a more inclusive, equitable, peaceful, and prosperous future where aspiration and well-being of young people are fulfilled. I thank you.
Thank you, Madame Kiete, for those incredibly stirring remarks and for encouraging the young people to journey with us as we chase up the Nairobi Summit commitments and the ICPD at 30 commitments. With ICPD on the agenda, I'd now like to invite our hosts to close us off at the end of this event. Ambassador Noemi Espinosa Madrid is the chair of the 57th session of the Commission on Population Development and a dear comrade and friend, and I'd like to invite the Excellency to give us closing remarks.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, friends. Voy a hablar en español. Gracias a los Estados miembros que se dieron cita aquí hoy, y sí voy a usar mi 1.8 minutos. Su presencia es una muestra de sus compromisos hacia los adolescentes y jóvenes. Gracias a nuestros socios que con este evento nos han ayudado a elevar el perfil de la Comisión sobre Población y Desarrollo, la cual tengo el honor de presidir. Permítame 3 rápidos puntos de cierre. Primero, somos conscientes de que la sociedad mundial está viviendo uno de los momentos más complejos de todos. El mundo es un lugar dividido, injusto y desigual, donde enfrentamos crisis multidimensionales que afectan particularmente a las poblaciones en edades más vulnerables. Incluso antes de la pandemia del COVID-19, ya se hablaba de un desfase en el cumplimiento de los ODS. Hoy en día, las cifras son indiscutibles. Cerca de la mitad de las 140 metas contenidas en la Agenda del 2030 están siendo moderadas o gravemente desviadas, y alrededor del 30% de ellas no han registrado movimiento o, peor aún, han retrocedido por debajo de la línea desde el 2015. Sin embargo, y este es mi segundo punto, en este espacio hemos constatado de que, a pesar de los valladares del mundo, continuamos plenamente comprometidos con el futuro de la adolescencia y de la juventud. En este sentido, desde la Comisión sobre Población y Desarrollo, tal como ha quedado reflejado, contribuiremos con la aceleración de la implementación de la Agenda 2030 y el logro de los ODS de una manera transversal. Finalmente, y mi tercer punto es que está muy claro que si no aumentamos nuestro nivel de ambición y mostramos la voluntad política indispensable para cumplir todos los compromisos contenidos en la Agenda 2030, no los alcanzaremos. Y la promesa de no dejar a nadie atrás se convertirá en la nueva deuda del multilateralismo. Es urgente y moral renovar nuestro compromiso y avanzar hacia un orden mundial más justo, inclusivo y equitativo, con el desarrollo sostenible en su centro, si realmente queremos la supervivencia de la especie humana. Esta sería nuestra mejor contribución al futuro común que necesitaríamos construir juntos. Y en este camino, desde la Comisión sobre Población y Desarrollo, nos aseguraremos priorizar a los jóvenes y adolescentes bajo la premisa de que ellos representan la causa del cambio positivo en nuestro presente. No tenemos otra opción. Muchísimas gracias por venir. Hasta luego.
What more can I say besides thank you to her ambassador, or your ambassador, Naomi Espinosa Madrid, for those stirring remarks and for really tying in the linkage between the Global Forum for Adolescents, the CPD 57, which is coming up next year, April, as well as the broader work that needs to be done to prioritize adolescent health, well-being, and development as we build up to the Summit of the Future later in 2024. Thank you all for being such an incredible audience. Thank you for your time, for your attention, and for really adding value to today's proceedings. I'd like to thank the speakers, the member states, the PMNCH colleagues, and all other partners that made this event a success. I would remind you, the last thing I'm going to say is make sure that you register for the Global Forum for Adolescents that will happen in the next 21 days between the 11th and 12th of October. Type in on any of your social media platforms 1.8 and you will find all the respective details that you need to register, but also to support the campaign. Thank you all for being such an incredible audience and wishing you all a successful GA week further. Thank you.